Hello everyone, it's Habiba here. Welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is doing well. So in today's video, I'm going to do a news wrap up for you. There are some very important stories from around the world that I want to touch on, that I want to cover a little bit and get your thoughts on. So if you're new here, thanks for joining me. I hope you'll subscribe. I hope you hit the like button. Let's jump right in. So a few days ago, on April 30th, massive protests erupted around the world in support of President IBRAHIM Traoré of Burkina Faso. And the purpose of these protests was to show solidarity with Captain Traoré and to demonstrate against a recent coup attempt. So as some of you may or may not know, there was another attempt made against his life. Right, there was an attempted coup against Ibrahim Traoré. All right, guys, so I was very happy to see these protests. I was very inspired. I found them very exciting because you know what? We need our revolutionaries once again as Africans. You know, we experienced slavery, we experienced colonization, and what we know is that we have not yet achieved full liberation as Africans. Full liberation, full and total freedom. You know, and many of our leaders like Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, they were ousted. They didn't get to carry out their mission, their objectives as they should have. So we need our strong leaders, our strong men, our strong women, once again, to rise up and to restore the dignity of our people and to bring liberation. We are tired of puppet leaders. We are tired of leaders who maintain, a certain hegemony for the West, for Western nations. We are tired of our leaders who keep us in economic slavery, through currencies like the CFA. We are tired of our leaders who negotiate very unfair, very exploitative trade deals when it comes to our own resources, when it comes to our gold, our diamonds, leaders who sell our minds for pennies, for literally nothing, So let's watch some of the protests that happen around the world. There were protests in Ghana, in Jamaica, in Liberia, in New York, all over the world. And let's hear what people were saying in those protests. And then I'm going to come back and give some commentary. So let's jump into some of the videos.
We are in support of the president for the liberation of our black mother country, Africa.
So you know what though? I just Africa we say. Round and about near and far. Worldwide, Mama Africa, to everyone. All African leaders just make we unite and come together in one. Yeah. And all Caribbean islands. Yeah. So you know Jamaica have to lead out for the world and its people. So you don't know. One perfect love. Rastafari.
Alright, so there you have it. You have a snippet of some of what happened on April 30th, of that energy of solidarity, that energy of love, that energy of saying no more, and that energy of saying we will protect Traoré. What happened to our leaders of old will not happen to him. You heard people avowing, you heard people saying they're ready to protect him with their lives. We heard from Wodemaya, who said the money is in Africa. The money is in Africa. And that is so true, because how is it that Africa is one of the poorest, if not the poorest continent in the world? And African countries are among the poorest countries in the world. So how is it that Africans are among the poorest people in the world, yet our countries are the wealthiest in terms of resource wealth? How is it that the children who work in the cocoa farms of Ivory Coast and the cocoa plantations, cocoa farms, how is it that they've never tasted chocolate? They've never tasted chocolate. How is it that those children who work in the gold mines across West Africa, across East Africa, South Africa, Congo, wherever they are, how is it that they don't own even a tiny piece of gold? Yet they should be draped in gold. They should be adorned in gold. They should be able to play with gold. If you catch my drift, if you get the point I'm trying to make here. So we need our revolutionaries once again. We need our Graça Michels, our Winnie Mandelas. I'm calling the woman too, because often we forget about the woman. And they were very much part and parcel, very much an integral part of the struggle. And just a quick side note, without the women, we wouldn't have protesters. I think of the Soweto protests, during apartheid, when they had all these protests, like in Soweto, all the young people who went out to protest in Soweto and they were killed, right? They exist because we have women, because you have mothers, because of childbearing and so forth. So we need our Graça Michels, our Winnie Mandelas, our Lumumbas, our Thomas Sankaras, who did not get to carry out their mission, who did not get to see their missions to completion. Traore will get to see his mission to completion. And people have to wonder, people have to really reflect and ask themselves, why is it that when a leader is trying to do good for his nation, because that's what he's trying to do, he's trying to empower his people, to improve the economy, to take us and to take Burkinabe people out of economic slavery. Why is it when African leaders try to do good for their nations, they're condemned and there are these coup attempts and then there's a lot of propaganda about them? All he's trying to do is do good for the nation. So, Captain President Ibrahim Traore, we send you positive energy. We send you the energy of protection. We send you good vibes. I'm thinking of Bob Marley's song, Africa Unite, Africa Unite. So that's the kind of energy, that energy of struggle, of overcoming, of liberation. We will see it. We will see it in our lifetime. We will see Africa's liberation. All the dispossessed youth of Africa will be free. All the dispossessed youth of Africa. This is from Jomo Kenyatta, who said that to all the dispossessed youth of Africa. They will have their inheritance. We will have our inheritance. The resources will benefit the people. It will benefit the country. Niger, look at the uranium in Niger, right? Yet you have l'obscurité, as they say in French, power outages, all this kind of stuff. All the uranium in Niger, which is used to benefit France. Niger has to begin selling their uranium for what it's worth so that the country can benefit from it. And we know since taking office, President Traore, he's done so many great things for the people, building housing, building roads, bolstering maternal health initiatives. This is crucial. Because maternal health and maternity, care for women, it's at the base. This is the basis of any society, right? Of any economy, if you want to think in terms of economics as well. So he's been bolstering a lot of maternal health initiatives, offering free maternity care at government hospitals, doing really great work. So to wrap this up, we send him light, we send him support, we send him solidarity. We are with Captain Traore. The whole world is with him. Especially the whole black world in Africa, in the continent of Africa, and in the diaspora. We are so proud of him because so many of our ancestors, so many of our people have died, and we cannot let them die in vain. We have to think of our ancestors who were enslaved, who were forced to make the Middle Passage, and those who didn't survive the journey, those who were thrown overboard, whose bones are in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. We have to think of them. We have to think of those who died in all kinds of revolutionary struggles, whether it was Angola, whether it was in South Africa to put an end to apartheid, whether it was in Ethiopia fighting against Mussolini's invasion, or even before then, even earlier, right? Ethiopia's leaders, Kassa, Tedros, Hailu, and so forth, Empress Teitu. This cannot be in vain. This cannot be in vain. And that's why Ibrahim Traore is back, to make sure that this mission of liberation, that this mission of freedom for Black people, for African people, is carried out right to the end. All right, so in October of 2024, the Malian government said that Canadian mining company Barrick Gold owes $500 million in outstanding taxes. So these are taxes that should have been paid to the Malian government for the mining operations conducted by Barrick Gold in Mali. So let's read this article from Reuters, this article from October. Mali's military government is seeking at least 300 billion CFA, remember CFA, we spoke about CFA, in outstanding taxes. So that 300 million CFA is about $500 million. In outstanding taxes and dividends from Barrick Gold, a move that is part of a push by the country to collect more revenue from mining companies. Authorities in Mali last month briefly detained 4 Malian staff working for Barrick, the world's second largest gold miner. Alright, so according to this article, which is from October of last year, it said the company had agreed with the government to solve existing claims and disputes. Now there's an update from 2025. So in early 2025, the Malian government seized about 3 metric tons of gold from one of the company's sites. So to give you an idea, 3 metric tons of gold, that's the weight of a female elephant, approximately. So it's a lot of gold. And the company has since halted its operations. All right, guys, and since then, a Barrick Gold executive has come out and said that they won't be paying the Malian government what they're owed in taxes, but will instead focus on charity work. And I think that statement is so disappointing, and it shows us again how Africa is disenfranchised, dispossessed by the West, right? And in this case, by Western multinationals. So we see how that cycle of poverty, how it's kept up. And we see how a lot of companies, foreign companies operating in Africa, do not follow contracts, they do not follow the rules set in place by our governments. So these are hundreds of millions of dollars owed in back taxes to the government. Can you imagine the amount of infrastructural development that could be done with that money? The amount of schools that could be built, the amount of hospitals that could be built, women's health initiatives, sanitation initiatives, all kinds of very important initiatives. So consistent with what I discussed earlier when I was discussing Ibrahim Traore and how he's back to restore the dignity of his people and of all Africans more broadly, as his work gains traction and as more join in on his mission. Consistent with what I mentioned in that piece is what I'm discussing here in this piece. We see how the underdevelopment of Africa, we see how it's systemic, right? And how there are so many parties that have a role in it. And now this is but one example. Nonetheless, I'm very happy that the Malian government is making a big deal out of this, because a major part of ensuring African liberation and African prosperity is making sure that African people, that Africa benefits from its own resources. Think about that. Other countries benefit from its own resources, so it's high time our leaders, our African leaders, ensure the same. Alright everyone, so I'm gonna wrap this up. This video was mainly to come out and to show support for Ibrahim Traore, but I'm gonna share one more story with you. This story is from several years ago, and I've had it bookmarked on my computer for a while now. It's about indigenous people's land rights, and particularly that of the San Bushmen of southern Africa, so who inhabit parts of the Kalahari Desert. So these people, they're found in Botswana, in Namibia, Southern Africa, I believe Angola as well, and mostly that area in Southern Africa. So it talks about how they have been dispossessed of their land and forced into camps. And the reason for this dispossession is because the land that they occupied sits on vast amounts of resources, of diamonds, of just their land is so resource rich. And again, as I've been saying throughout this video, it's been large multinational companies operating in their countries who have been benefiting from their resource wealth. A lot of the gold companies, the diamond companies who have been mining the land. In order to do so, they pushed the Bushmen out of their ancestral homelands. And they've been resettled into these camps, which the Bushmen themselves refer to as the place of death and other names like that. So the story is quite interesting. It's also quite sad. This is in Botswana, but this is not just the case of Bushmen in Botswana. Even in other countries where you find Bushmen, they face the same or similar realities. And we know that when resettled to these camps, we know of the horrors, the tragedies, the alcoholism, the prostitution. They just become plunged into so many unfortunate realities. So the article is called "We Were Made the Same as the Sand." I'll link it here. I want you all to go and read it. So let me read really briefly from the article. I'm just going to read a line or two for you. The truth is that forcibly wrenching people away from their lands, homes, myths, rituals, and memories is a fast route to the annihilation of self-worth and the breakdown of an entire society. All right, so they're no longer able to earn their livelihood as they once did through hunting. They are hunters, and that is very important to them and very central to their identity as Bushmen. They've been denied hunting licenses and are frequently arrested when they return to their lands, to their ancestral lands, to hunt. Guys, like I said, this is an older story, but their plight persists till today. They're still fighting for rights, for their land rights. They're still fighting to reclaim their land and so forth. You can follow up on the issue yourself. And so I'm so happy to have come across this article because I was watching an episode some time ago of the #1 Ladies Detective Agency series. So this is basically a book that's been adapted into a television series. The book is excellent. The series is also excellent. I'd encourage you guys all to check it out. And now in one of the episodes, Mara Motswe, the central character, engages Bushmen trackers to help her investigate one of her cases. And so there's a part in the episode that I really love because they highlight a Bushman grandfather and his granddaughter. His granddaughter translates from their language, so from their San language to English, right? Because her grandfather is the tracker. And so they're in the episode, they speak the language. So there's this, there's a short snippet of them speaking the language, and we see the grandfather and his granddaughter, and she's just so wonderfully beautiful, and then we hear her speaking the language, and it's just, I just loved it. It was just so beautiful. They're an ancient people, but to see their culture, it's still alive, still very much alive, and despite what we heard in the article and about the self-annihilation, the path to self-annihilation, which is true. Seeing them featured in that episode, it was just very heartwarming for me. And also to listen to the language, you hear all the clicks, which tells us it's an ancient language. In linguistics, when you hear all the clicks, some of the sounds in a language can tell you how old it is. It can tell you how ancient the language is. And we know that these Kalahari Bushmen, they are very closely related to our early ancestors on the planet, to the modern humans who came out of that region, that southern African region, about 200,000, 300,000 years ago. These Kalahari Bushmen, they are the direct descendants. That part was very heartwarming for me, and I just wanted to share. That piece with you because I had it bookmarked and I had wanted to share my thoughts on it for quite some time. So thanks everyone for joining. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. Blessings, peace, and solidarity for Ibrahim Traore, for Burkina Faso, for all of Africa and the diaspora. Viva Traore, viva Ibrahim. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me. See you in my next video. Bye.